It was a crisp Monday morning when Jason Monroe stepped through the glass doors of the luxury car showroom. The city was still shaking off its weekend haze skyscrapers, casting long shadows over quiet sidewalks, and the air carried that unmistakable sense of reset that only a new week could bring. Jason was dressed plainly. Nothing about him screamed money. A faded button-down shirt, neatly tucked into worn khaki pants, and a pair of running shoes that had seen better days. No one looking at him would have guessed he was the founder and CEO of one of the largest luxury auto chains in the region, and that was exactly how he wanted it. The showroom was immaculate, as always. White marble floors reflecting soft natural light, a polished espresso bar in the corner, and a lineup of exotic vehicles gleaming under suspended ceiling lamps. Employees moved with the efficiency of routine, resetting brochures, aligning seats, ensuring perfection. But none of them looked up. Jason wandered quietly toward the latest hybrid coupe, one of the brand's flagship models. He ran his fingers lightly along the edge of the car door. Still, no one approached. At the front desk, a young woman with flawless makeup and a bored expression finally noticed him. Her eyes flicked over his outfit, and her voice was flat as she asked, "Can I help you with something?" Jason offered a polite nod. "I'm interested in learning more about this model. Do you have any appointments open this morning?" She didn't smile. "We usually require bookings in advance. You can view the specs online if you're just browsing." Just browsing. The words echoed in his mind, not with anger, but with a deep, familiar disappointment. He had heard those words before. Years ago, long before the boardrooms and business cards, the sting wasn't new, but it still carried weight. Another employee, tall, in a tailored navy suit, passed by and gave him a dismissive glance before steering his attention toward a man in a designer blazer who had just walked in. Jason stood still for a moment, absorbing the atmosphere. Not even 15 minutes into the day, and already he had been measured, judged, and quietly dismissed. He exhaled slowly, adjusted the cuff of his shirt, and walked deeper into the showroom, silent but watching. The deeper Jason moved into the showroom, the colder the space felt, not physically but emotionally. Every inch was designed to impress. High-end finishes, curated lighting, digital screens looping slow-motion shots of luxury cars gliding through breathtaking mountain roads. But beneath that glossy perfection was something much more unsettling in difference. A trio of sales representatives stood near the espresso bar, laughing softly over foam-topped lattes, none of them acknowledging Jason's presence. One of them, a man in his late 20s with slick-back hair and a designer watch, glanced in Jason's direction. His gaze dropped to Jason's shoes dusty from the city sidewalk and then shifted away without a word. Jason wandered toward the corner where the limited edition electric coupe was showcased. Its sleek black frame shimmered like obsidian under the spotlights. He leaned in to study the dashboard through the tinted glass, quietly admiring a design he himself had personally approved months ago. Just then, a voice broke the silence. "Excuse me, sir," said a man in a fitted gray suit, older, with salt and pepper hair, and a tone that walked the line between polite and condescending. "That model isn't available for general browsing. We typically reserve access for clients with scheduled consultations." Jason turned to face him. "I was hoping to learn more. I'm interested in its performance under cold weather conditions." The man gave a tight smile. "We can refer you to our online resources, or perhaps our pre-owned division down the street. They handle more introductory inquiries." The implication was clear. He didn't belong here. Jason didn't argue. He simply stepped back, watching as the same salesman rushed to greet a sharply dressed couple entering the showroom. Within seconds, they were being offered cappuccinos and escorted to the private lounge and experience, not just a sale. Jason returned to the center of the showroom, standing silently beneath the soft lights. It wasn't the first time he had been overlooked. It wasn't even the worst, but that didn't make it right. From the corner of his eye, he caught a younger employee whispering to another, eyes darting toward him. He didn't hear what was said, but the smirk that followed said enough. Jason's fingers brushed the edge of his phone in his pocket. Not yet. He gave the showroom one last sweeping glance, not with resentment, but with clarity. They were failing a test they didn't even know they were taking. Just as Jason stepped away from the coupe, the glass doors of the showroom parted with a subtle whoosh. A man entered, tall, confident, wrapped in the kind of tailored blazer that whispered status without saying a word. His shoes gleamed. His watch caught the light. His smile was effortless. And with him, everything changed. The same trio of sales reps who had ignored Jason now straightened their postures, their casual chatter evaporating mid-sentence. One of them, the youngest, practically jogged to greet the new arrival. "Good morning, sir," he said, voice elevated with enthusiasm. "Welcome to Edison Elite. Can I offer you a coffee? Still or sparkling water, perhaps? We've just received the latest model in the Executive Platinum line. Would you like to see it in our private lounge?" Jason watched from a short distance, arms loosely crossed, posture relaxed but eyes keen. The shift in tone, in energy, was immediate. This man had not said a single word. He hadn't asked for service. He had only walked in. But to the employees, that was enough. It was the outfit, the walk, the way he carried himself. They saw what they wanted to see, a buyer. Jason, on the other hand, was invisible, still standing in plain sight. The young receptionist who had so curtly dismissed him earlier now peeked over the counter, adjusting her hair. The man in the blazer smiled her way. She blushed. Jason took a slow step toward the center of the room, pausing near a two-tone convertible on display. He reached for the door handle, but before his hand could touch the chrome, a sharp voice interrupted him. "Sir, please don't touch that," said the older salesman, the same one who had steered him toward the pre-owned division just moments ago. His tone was sharper this time. "That vehicle is reserved for serious clients." Jason turned his head slowly. His voice was soft, calm. "I see." But what he saw wasn't the car. He saw a showroom sculpted not just by glass and steel, but by assumptions. He saw employees performing a role, one that shifted based on wardrobe, skin tone, and posture. And he saw clearly now. Respect here wasn't earned, it was pre-assigned. He looked back at the man being offered champagne and VIP access, and he let the silence say what words didn't need to. Jason remained near the convertible, his hands slowly retreating from the door handle. He wasn't angry, not yet, but he could feel the weight of it building beneath the surface like pressure behind glass. Around him, the showroom buzzed with selective energy. Smiles and small talk circled the sharply dressed newcomer, now seated comfortably in a high-end luxury model with a sales rep eagerly adjusting the seat controls for him. Laughter echoed softly. Flattery flowed. Jason turned away from it all, moving back toward the corner near the espresso bar, still untouched by the same people offering cappuccinos across the room. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. No hesitation, no dramatics, just one message typed in silence. "Activate internal audit. Bring report. Arrive in 15. He hit send. The device disappeared back into his pocket like nothing had happened. To the employees still ignoring him, he was just another man wandering too close to expensive vehicles, perhaps killing time before heading somewhere more appropriate. But the wheels were already turning, quietly and efficiently, far beyond their awareness. Jason settled onto a leather bench by the window. Sunlight filtered through the showroom's tinted glass, catching the gold stitching on the cushions beside him. He looked outward, not at the cars, but at his own reflection faintly mirrored in the pane. There were no labels on his clothes, no logo to announce who he was. But that was the point. If respect only came with status written on a badge or printed on a blazer, then it wasn't respect at all. It was performance, conditional, fragile. He tapped his foot slowly, rhythmically, a calm counter to the shallow clamor a few steps away. Not a single employee had returned to him. Not one had corrected the assumptions. No one had thought to ask who he was or who he might be. They had already decided, and that was all the information he needed. Outside, the light shifted as a sleek black SUV rolled to a gentle stop in front of the showroom's entrance. Tinted windows, silent engine, right on time. Jason stood slowly, brushed invisible dust from his sleeve, and looked once more across the marble floor. The atmosphere was about to change. They just didn't know it yet. The glass doors slid open once more. The moment the black SUV pulled up to the entrance, a subtle shift moved through the showroom, unspoken but unmistakable. It was like the room sensed something important had entered the atmosphere. The sales team glanced toward the front, posture instinctively straightening. One of them reached to smooth his tie. Another paused mid-sentence. A woman stepped out of the vehicle, tall, poised, dressed in a dark navy suit with sharp lapels and a silver tablet in hand. Her heels clicked cleanly across the marble as she entered. Her presence didn't ask for attention. It commanded it. Jason watched from his seat in the corner, calm, still invisible in their eyes. The woman scanned the room, then walked directly toward him. The same employees who had ignored him for nearly an hour now exchanged glances, confusion mounting as she stopped in front of Jason and gave a slight professional nod. "Good morning, Mr. Monroe," she said clearly, voice crisp. "Audit documents are prepared, and the internal compliance report is ready for your signature." Silence. It dropped into the showroom like a stone in still water. Every pair of eyes turned toward Jason. Mr. Monroe, not sir, not customer. Mr. Monroe spoken with formality, familiarity, and unmistakable authority. The receptionist slowly stood up behind the front desk, her expression unreadable. The older salesman, the one who had redirected Jason toward the pre-owned division, visibly paled. Even the young rep pouring champagne for the suited customer froze, mid-pour. Jason stood slowly. He didn't look angry. He looked focused, controlled, certain. He thanked the woman with a nod, took the tablet from her hand, and turned to face the room. Some employees were still trying to make sense of what they just heard. Others already knew. And suddenly, Jason wasn't invisible. He was unmistakably present. The man they had judged by his shoes was the man who signed their paychecks. Jason let the moment hang in the air, not to humiliate them, but to let the truth settle in. The truth they hadn't bothered to discover. Then, with a voice calm and deliberate, he asked the only question that mattered. "This is how we treat people here?" And just like that, the mask began to slip. No one answered right away. Jason's question, simple, measured, hung in the air, like a challenge none of them had prepared for. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The silence it created was louder than any reprimand. He scanned the faces in front of him. The receptionist stood rigid, her fingers laced tightly in front of her. The older salesman avoided his gaze entirely. His jaw clenched, and the younger employees fidgeted in place, looking everywhere but at Jason. One finally spoke. "Sir, we didn't know who you were." Jason tilted his head slightly. "And if I wasn't who I am?" The question landed like a pin drop in an empty hall. He took a few slow steps forward, the echo of his shoes punctuating the silence. "If I had been a school teacher," he continued, "a small business owner, Or just someone who saved for years to afford a car from this showroom? Would I have deserved the same dismissal? Still no response. Jason turned toward the older salesman. You sent me away without a conversation, without a question. You didn't ask what I needed. You decided what I was worth. The man's voice cracked as he replied, I didn't mean any harm. Jason's eyes didn't flinch. But you did cause it. And not just to me. He gestured toward the room. How many others have walked through these doors and felt small? How many people have left thinking they didn't belong because of how you made them feel? A beat passed, then another, and no one dared interrupt. Jason looked to his assistant, still standing quietly, tablet in hand. How many complaints has this location received in the last quarter? 16, sir, she answered, all related to discriminatory treatment or dismissive service. Jason nodded, slowly, solemnly. He wasn't angry. He was disappointed. There's a difference between selling cars and selling trust, he said, and today, too many of you chose the former. The room remained motionless, each person now seeing themselves reflected in the consequences they had helped create. Jason hadn't raised his voice. He didn't need to. He had simply held up a mirror, and now they were being forced to look. The air inside the showroom was different now, thick, unmoving, almost reverent. The illusion had shattered. No one was rushing to the next customer. No one was laughing behind the coffee bar. Everyone was still, caught between the weight of realization and the fear of what might come next. Jason turned to his assistant. Document the names of those directly involved. Prepare a formal report for HR. Yes, sir, she said, already typing. That single sentence sent a ripple through the room. Shoulders tensed, eyes widened. The older salesman Ron, as his name tag read, stepped forward, voice shaking. Mr. Monroe, please. This was a misunderstanding. If we had known... Jason held up a hand. Calm, quiet, but firm. That's just it, Ron. You didn't know, and you didn't care to. Ron froze. The pleading in his eyes was met with silence. Jason scanned the room again. This isn't about ego. I didn't come here to play a game. I came to see if this place still reflects what we built, what I believe in. He gestured toward the gleaming vehicles, the polished floors, the walls lined with awards. None of this means anything if the people inside treat others like they don't belong. A younger employee, the same one who'd snickered earlier, lowered his gaze. Shame bloomed across his face. Jason walked to the center of the showroom, where sunlight from the glass ceiling pooled around him like a spotlight. He turned toward the security guard standing quietly near the door, a young man who had been the only one to greet him with kindness when he entered. Jason pulled a business card from his wallet and held it out. What's your name? Marcus, sir. Jason nodded. Thank you, Marcus. You treated me like a person before you knew who I was. That matters. He placed the card in Marcus's hand. If you ever want to grow with this company, call me. Around them, silence, not of respect, but of reckoning. Then Jason faced the team one last time. Effective immediately, all staff involved in discriminatory behavior will be suspended pending review. Let today serve as a reminder. Status doesn't determine worth. Your character does. No raised voice, no theatrics, just truth. And with it, respect reclaimed. The sunlight outside was bright, clean, golden, almost too perfect. It spilled across the sidewalk like a spotlight, chasing away shadows that had no place in the open air. Jason stepped through the glass doors of the showroom, the silence behind him heavy, like the ending of a long performance. But there was no applause, only quiet reckoning. The black SUV idled at the curb. The driver stepped out and opened the door, but Jason paused before entering. He turned back, one last glance at the place he'd built with vision, grit, and the belief that luxury should never come at the cost of humanity. Behind the glass, employees stood scattered, some frozen in place, others still processing what had just unfolded. The showroom looked the same, but something had changed. Not in the marble or the chrome, but in the eyes of those who had looked past him. Jason inhaled slowly, letting the air fill his lungs. Then he exhaled, not out of anger, but release. He had done what needed to be done. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't a power play. It was a correction, a realignment of values. He climbed into the SUV, settled into the back seat, and pulled the door closed behind him. As the vehicle merged into the steady rhythm of city traffic, Jason glanced out the window one last time. Not every injustice shouts. Some whisper, some smile, some hand you a brochure while silently deciding you're not worth their time. But character, true character, reveals itself when you think no one is watching, and today he had watched enough. In life, people will often judge you by what they see: your clothes, your posture, the car you drive, or the shoes you wear. But what they don't see, and often fail to ask, is who you really are beneath all of that. This story reminds us that respect should never be reserved for appearances. It should be offered freely, because every person we meet carries a story we haven't heard, a struggle we haven't seen, and a value we may not yet understand. True character doesn't show itself when everyone is watching. It reveals itself in the quiet moments, in how we treat those we think have nothing to offer us. You never truly know who you're speaking to, or how your words might shape their day or your future. So live with grace, speak with humility, lead with kindness. And when given the choice between judgment and compassion, choose compassion every single time. Because in the end, it's not wealth, power, or titles that define a person. It's how they make others feel when they believe no one's watching.